Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fundamental concept, one that sits right at the intersection of state authority and your individual liberty. We're looking at the balance of power. Specifically, we want to understand the rules, your rights, and the strict procedures of an arrest under the Criminal Procedure Code, which is commonly known as the CrPC. Okay, let's dive right into this because before we get into the heavy legal mechanics, we have to ground ourselves in the absolute ultimate principle at play here. This is the golden rule that dictates everything we're about to cover. Arrest is a serious power. Police must use it legally, fairly, and only when necessary. You know, this isn't just a polite suggestion, it's the absolute backbone of the entire legal framework. Literally every single rule we look at today exists just to enforce this one idea. So, here is our roadmap for today. First, the power of arrest. Second, warrants and legal offenses. Third, the arrest procedure. Fourth, rights of the arrested. And finally, exceptions and citizen arrests. Section 1. The power of arrest, defining custody and authority. To start with the absolute basics, what actually is an arrest? Well, in strict legal terms, it's the process by which a person is taken into custody by a police officer or by order of a court for an offense. Put simply, the police take a person into custody because they have reason to believe that person committed a crime. It's the physical deprivation of personal liberty for a very specific legal purpose. Let's see how this builds, because who actually has the authority to make this happen? Naturally, we all think of any police officer, but the CrPC actually expands this. The court can issue an order of arrest, and surprisingly to a lot of people, and no, this isn't just a trope from the movies, any everyday person can make what's known as a citizen's arrest in some very strict situations, which we'll actually get into a bit later. The main takeaway here is that this power isn't exclusively held by men and women in uniform. Section 2. Warrants and legal offenses, the rules of engagement. So the crucial point is, when can this power actually be used? Well, it all comes down to a massive legal distinction. The law divides offenses into two main buckets, cognizable and non-cognizable. If an offense is cognizable, which usually means it's much more serious, police can arrest a suspect completely without a warrant. But if it's non-cognizable, their hands are basically tied on the spot. They absolutely need a court-issued warrant to make an arrest. This single distinction dictates the entire timeline of how an investigation kicks off. So when exactly can the police bypass the court and act immediately? Under Sections 41 and 46 of the CrPC, police are granted the authority to arrest without a warrant in really high-stakes or urgent scenarios. This includes those cognizable offenses we just talked about. But they can also act immediately if an offense is committed right in their presence, if the accused is an officially proclaimed offender, if making an arrest is strictly necessary to prevent a further offense, or if the accused is actively trying to escape or abscond. The law empowers police to act fast to maintain public safety when time is literally of the essence. Section 3. The arrest procedure. Doing it by the book. But how is this executed on the ground? Because arrest is such a tremendous power. Officers can't just throw someone in the back of a squad car without saying a word. There is a mandatory chronological procedure outlined in Sections 50 and 51. Step 1. The officer must clearly inform the person that they are under arrest and state the explicit grounds for it. Step 2. If it's a bailable offense, they have to inform the person of their right to bail right then and there. Step 3. The arrested person gets the right to inform a relative or friend about what's going on. And Step 4. The arrest has to be officially recorded in the station's general diary. This is a strict chain of events designed entirely to ensure transparency and stop abuse in its tracks. Right, so once the person is officially in custody, the physical realities of detention set in. Under Section 51, the police have the authority to search the arrested person safely. Plus, under Section 54, if it's required for the investigation or for the well-being of the individual, a medical examination can be conducted. Every single physical interaction during this process is governed by its own specific section of the code. Section 4. Rights of the arrested. The citizen's legal shield. Now, let's totally shift gears here. The very moment state power is exercised, the citizen's protective rights immediately activate. If you are ever detained, you have an absolute right to be informed of the grounds of your arrest. You have a right to seek bail in bailable offenses. You have the right to have a friend or relative informed immediately. You have the right to request a medical examination. And critically, you have a fundamental, unwavering right against any form of ill treatment or illegal detention. These aren't just polite suggestions for law enforcement, okay? They are hard-coded, essential legal protections. Now, what's really interesting about this next rule is this one specific number, 24. Under Section 57 of the CrPC, 24 hours is the absolute maximum amount of time an arrested person can be detained by police before they must be physically produced before a magistrate. It's a strict, non-negotiable ticking clock. The police absolutely do not have the power of indefinite custody. The judiciary steps in to review the legality of the arrest within one single day.
Section 5. Exceptions and citizen arrests. Nuances in the law.
Okay, this is where things get really fascinating. Remember our golden rule from the very beginning? Arrest only when necessary? Well, Section 41A perfectly embodies this. It states that for offenses punishable by up to 7 years in prison, police should generally issue a formal notice of appearance instead of actually making an arrest. If the accused is fully cooperating with the investigation and there's zero risk of them absconding or fleeing, the law actually prefers sending this formal notice rather than stripping away someone's liberty. It's an incredible built-in mechanism just to prevent unnecessary jail time. But what about you and me, the everyday citizen? Well, Section 43 outlines exactly when a private citizen can step in and make an arrest without a warrant. It's for highly specific, dramatic situations. Say a cognizable, serious offense is committed right in your presence, or if you stumble upon a proclaimed offender, or if a person is strongly suspected to have committed a cognizable offense. The law essentially deputizes citizens in these clear-cut emergencies, allowing you to detain the individual until the police arrive. Just remember, these are high-stakes situations, definitely not an excuse to play vigilante. And mapping this all out brilliantly illustrates how everything comes together to create a tightly woven legal ecosystem. Think of a real-world example from this framework. Say a police officer sees person A committing a theft. Theft is a cognizable offense. Because it's cognizable and happening right in their presence, the officer arrests A without a warrant. They immediately inform A of the grounds for the arrest, record it in the official diary, and instantly, that 24-hour clock starts ticking down to produce A before a magistrate. All these distinct sections of the CrPC just work together flawlessly, like gears in a machine. We've covered a ton of ground today, but it really all comes right back to where we started. Arrest is a profoundly serious power, and it's designed to be used fairly, legally, and only when absolutely necessary. Understanding these legal mechanisms isn't just for law students or attorneys, it is a fundamental pillar of your civic awareness. Knowing exactly where state power ends and your personal liberty begins is crucial. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you know the rules, the procedures, and the absolute limits on authority, are you prepared to protect your legal rights? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious and keep learning.